All right, I want to thank everyone for coming, and I want to welcome you to the LoRusso Law Firm. I know that we sent out the press conference last night, press release last night, so I want to appreciate all of you taking the time to come and join us. I'd like to introduce the people who are at the table first. My name is Lance LoRusso. This is my law firm. To my far left is Lynn Hogue, Lieutenant Colonel, United States Army, retired, a law professor from Georgia State who is now semi-retired. And to my far right is Rebecca Santel, another attorney in my office. To my left is Colonel Will Holahan, United States Marine Corps retired, who is the Membership Development Officer for the Reserve Officers Association of the United States. And to my right is Captain Nicole Mitchell, United States Air Force Reserve, the client that we are here about today. You'll find press packets available to my left, and you are welcome to take those. We also will take some questions after the press conference. If anyone is interested in individual interviews, we can take a few minutes, rearrange the room, and we can make that available. I know your schedules are tight, so if you would like to do those immediately after that, this meeting, that's fine. And if you need to come back a little bit later, if you have other assignments, we will make arrangements for that. If you're interested in an interview afterwards, I'd ask you to contact Ms. Sample, and she will make sure that arrangements are made. We are here about a lawsuit that was filed September 9th, 2011. The lawsuit was filed for a violation of USERRA, the Uniformed Services Employment and Reemployment Rights Act. This lawsuit, codified at 38 U.S.C. 4301, prevents discrimination and prohibits any discrimination against a service member for any reason whatsoever connected with their service. It also prevents retaliation against service members based on the obligations of their service or their status as a service member. The standard is a motivating factor analysis. That is, was there a decision made that was adverse to the service member for which their service status was a motivating factor? Some examples of that general violation are complaining about schedules, making comments about the burden of scheduling around the service member's status, taking any employment action adverse to the service member, and it protects service members regarding volunteer and required service, so whether or not they were called up specifically for an assignment or whether they are on a mission that they applied for. It is based on a simple principle that people serving in the military have sacrificed and said their service comes before themselves, and we ask employers to cooperate. Nicole Mitchell has approximately 20 years of service to our country, ending in August 2012. She will have 20 years of service to our country starting right out of high school. She started with the National Guard and now is a captain and a major-elect with the United States Air Force Reserve. In 2003, she transferred with the United States Air Force Reserve to the Hurricane Hunters. The Hurricane Hunters fly WC-130s into the eye of hurricanes and provide valuable information into storm patterns, strength, and the path of those hurricanes and tropical storms. That information is transmitted to the National Hurricane Center, and all of you have seen those maps and how scary those storms can look. All of that information and the data gained from it, not only historical information, but also for planning evacuations and protecting life and property, comes from the unit, the Hurricane Hunters. That information is shared with all media outlets, through the Vortex message system. The media use that information to inform the public and also to increase their revenue, which obviously is through their ratings. It's a dangerous assignment. It requires very specialized knowledge. But the statistics that are out there is that the Hurricane Hunters increase the degree of tracking and accuracy by approximately 30%. She holds a BS in meteorology from the United States Air Force, a BS in speech communications from the University of Minnesota, and a Juris Doctor degree from the Georgia State University College of Law. She is actually a member of the Georgia Bar. She is American Meteorology Service certified and has an award and a seal of approval from that, and has received awards for public service. When she came to Atlanta, she began working to make ties in the Atlanta area, planning to stay here. She pursued her law degree while she was at the Weather Channel and planned to use that degree to assist children in special advocacy programs. She was the president of the advisory board for the special advocacy program in Capt County. In 2004, Nicole Mitchell began working with the Weather Channel. Her contract was renewed early in 2006, which is a sign of superior performance and an effort by the media entity to try to retain that performance. Both contracts, her initial contract and her renewal contract, contained arbitration provisions which were not optional. In 2008, July 6, 2008, the Weather Channel was purchased by NBC, Bain Capital, and the Blackstone Group, and that is where problems began. Immediately after the purchase, there were meetings, individual meetings with all of the on-camera reporters, including Captain Mitchell. Elena Nachmanoff, who was the vice president of NBC, and Jessica Groth, who was a manager in talent recruitment and development, sat down with Nicole and asked a lot of questions about how much time would be required for this service to her country. They asked questions about disruptions to schedule, and then ironically asked how NBC could maximize the potential for exploiting the use of the hurricane hunters and promoting it in order to gain ratings for their entity. Over the next 6 months, Elena and Jessica were heavily involved with the Weather Channel. Throughout the course of this, Jessica has now been promoted. Her last name is now Kerdali. She's been promoted to the Senior Director of Recruitment and Development. As the problems began, for example, March 30th, 2009, Elena Nachmanoff confronted Nicole because she was unable to make a hair appointment that was set for a Sunday, and the schedule was actually set well in advance for Nicole's military obligations. However, Ms. Nachmanoff, who was a vice president with NBC, was visibly upset over the phone and chastised her for not putting the Weather Channel and NBC first. After Nicole explained that they had had the dates for her military duty 9 months in advance, miraculously the appointment was changed into a Monday. In April of 2009, shortly after this conversation, a decision was made to remove Nicole from a program, Your Weather Today. Now, it's important to remember, for an on-camera meteorologist, the Weather Channel is the premier network for them to work in. Your Weather Today was the premier show at the Weather Channel. So plans were made to move her off of that show as anchor immediately following this conversation. In fact, in April of 2009, a promotion with the new anchors was already shot. When she asked in May if there were going to be any changes to her status on Your Weather Today, she was told there were not. But in fact, in June, she was transferred to a new schedule. In June, we also had a confrontation over her schedule. There was a makeup consultation scheduled, and she was advised in June of 2009 that she had to attend it. And again, it was randomly scheduled. But her schedule was known in advance to the Weather Channel. When she raised an issue that she could not be there, ironically, it was during the hurricane season. Anyone would know that the hurricane season would conflict with this. The issue of her having a disruption in the schedule for the Weather Channel was known throughout the staff and employees were talking about it to her. June 22nd of 2009, her schedule was changed. Now, Your Weather Today was a 10 a.m. or 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. schedule that allowed her to leave well in advance of her weekend deployments and well in advance to drive to Mississippi, where her unit deploys out of. She was changed to a Monday through Friday night schedule from 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. Sometimes there was coverage that she would have to do to tape a show from 1 a.m. to 2 a.m. Virtually on Friday morning, Friday night, it became impossible for her to work that shift and then drive to Mississippi in order to meet her service obligations. This forced her to take additional time off and again caused conflicts with her scheduling. August 25th of 2009, Jessica Groth sent an email to Nicole telling her that in the future any of her volunteer assignments had to be cleared through NBC prior to taking the leave. She reminded Jessica that all of the United States military are volunteers and that USERRA prevented them from discriminating against her or ordering her to clear her schedule prior. Now, it's important to note in this case that with Nicole's schedule, there were periods of scheduled leave, and then there were periods where she gave notice. At no time did she give less than 2 weeks' notice to any time she would have to deploy. In addition, we did not have a traditional deployment like we have now with so many of our veterans leaving for 3 months to 18 months at a time. When Nicole came back and said, look, you can't do this, you can't require me to clear my schedule, I'll give you as much notice as I can, it was obvious that that was a change in the way she was being treated At that point, Jessica and Elena essentially did not speak with her again, and as far as we know, she was the only person at the Weather Channel required to clear her schedule through New York. In June 8th of 2010, she was asked to blog about the oil spill in the Gulf. She advised that it was a violation of military regulations, and was again received some feedback that that was not the appropriate answer. September of 2010, right after returning for duty, she was asked to come in for a performance review, a mid-year performance review, something all of you in this room are familiar with. She gathered all of her documentation. The performance review was not conducted specifically according to their protocols, but she gathered all of her documentation. It was a ruse. When she walked in the room, she was told that her contract was not being renewed. A non-renewal in the media is synonymous with being terminated. She asked exactly why she was not being renewed and was told that it was for, and this is a direct quote, business reasons. When she asked if there were performance reasons or rating issues, she was told no, there were no performance reasons, there were no rating issues, it was a business reason. Following that, now keep in mind at this time Nicole was in law school, they told her they would draft up some final documents so that she would not be bound by the non-compete. When they presented those documents to her, they wanted her to waive any right to sue any of her employers in any way or fashion. She refused to sign those documents. Throughout the course of her time with the Weather Channel, she was discriminated against by telling that her military schedule impacts everyone. She was harassed for meeting her military assignments and was told to clear her military assignments in advance. She was removed from Your Weather Today, which is a premier assignment, and moved to less desirable shifts. She was essentially told that for business reasons there was no longer a place for her at the Weather Channel, and was confirmed that there were no business reason, no performance or rating issues with her. I actually spoke to the HR people over at the Weather Channel, and they confirmed there were no performance or rating issues, that it was a business reason. The Weather Channel, NBC, Bain, and Blackstone, the latter two are involved intimately. You'll see some information in your media packet of the involvement of Bain Capital and the Blackstone Group. NBC, in addition, was owned at the time by GE. I find it ironic that Jeffrey Immelt, the CEO of GE, is actually sitting on the President's Economic Advisory Board with a mission to increase job creation in the United States. Obviously, GE is a large contractor of government services. Since her termination, we spoke with the Weather Channel. They've refused to allow her to copy her personnel file. They only allowed her to have her annual reviews. There was no mid-year appraisal in her file for 2010 as of September 17, 2010. They refused to allow me to accompany her to the Weather Channel, refused to preserve documents stating that absent litigation they had no obligation to do so. They refused to speak with Nicole about these supposed business reasons. And like I said, they confirmed for me that there was no business reason, there was no performance issue or rating issue. We filed suit against the Weather Channel, NBC, Bain, and Blackstone, but they refused to litigate this case in the District Court of the United States. They insisted on enforcing an arbitration provision, and it's important to note that they had the ability to waive that arbitration provision, but they sought to pursue this in a venue that has no appeal rights and also a venue that is not public. We are trying to agree on an arbitrator right now, and that is the status of the arbitration. One arbitrator was rejected because, ironically, he had too much military service. We're holding this press conference to call attention to this problem nationally. The discrimination is widespread. Other prospective employers have asked Nicole specifically, what did you do wrong at the Weather Channel? Non-renewal of a contract in the media industry is synonymous with termination for cause. We're also calling attention to two bills that are included in your packet. The Service Members Employment Protection Act of 2012 and the Service Members Access to Justice Act, the former being introduced by Senator Pryor, the latter by Senator Casey. The problem with arbitration for a service member is incredibly expensive. In addition, there is no set procedure for discovery. It is up to the arbitrator. Therefore, if you're dealing with a large company, you don't have the same access to information or the same use to force and means to force production of documents as you do in a court of law. In addition, we've seen situations where the burdens inherent in USERRA have been misapplied in arbitration. And again, there is no appeal in that regard. The discrimination against Nicole Mitchell is also particularly troubling. If my firm employs a reservist, that desk lies empty as they're deployed. And the private mission of my law firm takes a second place, as it should, to the primary mission of the military. When Nicole Mitchell was performing her military obligations, she was fulfilling the private mission of the Weather Channel. In fact, the Weather Channel cannot function without the information from the hurricane hunters. Now the Weather Channel is airing a series about the hurricane hunters, highlighting their use of the information from these entities. It is ironic that one of the things that they did during the filming of this was make extensive efforts, to keep Nicole out of the shots. NBC is supporting the We've Got Your Six campaign, and unfortunately that is not how they practice. Like most reservists, Nicole is still serving, but she's also concerned about other reservists. She has the means to bring a case against these entities. She has a law degree and she's very well educated, but there are a lot of service members who do not have those types of resources. It is easier, far easier, to give up your reserve status than to fight with your employer over discrimination or to go find a new job. But she's an attorney, they still discriminated against her, and she feels the need to fight for those people. Ironically, CNN used her during Hurricane Irene several times, and the Weather Channel used the data that she collected on that C-130 during Hurricane Irene. She's faced discrimination at prior employment because specifically of her military assignments and no other reason, but moved on. She was at the top network for on-camera meteorologists on the top show, and now that is gone. The evil of this discrimination is the fact that I can stand at any court and represent the rights and stand up for the rights of anyone because people like Nicole choose to wear a uniform. And the two gentlemen with me at this table chose to wear a uniform. But now she is being barred access to those same courts based on discrimination that stems from her wearing that uniform. The Reserve Officers Association is standing to assist us today. They stand as a resource both for the service members and for employers so they can understand what their obligations are. If other service members have faced discrimination, I urge them to gather documentation and contact the Reserve Officers Association. I also urge them to contact their Congress members and ask them to vote and pass the Service Members Employment Protection Act and the Service Members Access to Justice Act. At this time, I would like to ask Colonel Holahan to speak to us for a moment about the Reserve Officers Association.
Which one is that his name here?
Yes.
I'm a retired Marine officer and a member of the staff of the Reserve Officers Association. ROA is a 57,000 member professional association for all the uniformed services of the United States, that is, officers who hold a federal commission. Captain Miller is a member of ROA, and we're here today to support her, and we applaud her courage and conviction in taking these actions. ROA, through its service members law center, supports its members through providing information relative to reemployment and employment rights and voting rights for its members and all members of the reserve components of the United States. ROA was founded in 1922 and it's a congressionally chartered association.
First, I want to say thank you all again for being here today. I know this story is new to a lot of you, but we've been working on this for over a year, and it's nerve-wracking stepping forward like this. So I'm gratified to see people that are interested both in the case, but also in the larger issues that we've been talking about today. And I also want to acknowledge all the challenges that active duty people face. I've worked alongside a lot of them, and because of the civilian-military balance, what we're talking about is a little bit more Guard and Reserve today. But as I said, no way focusing on this issue and by diminishing some of the things that they go through. Employers harassing military members is far more common than anyone realizes. Even when it doesn't result in you losing a job. I can't tell you how many military colleagues, in fact most of them over the years when we've gotten talking about it, had talked about the challenges of trying to adjust schedules to make bosses or coworkers happy or not complain, who have some way been penalized in their career advancement because of the time that they've needed off to deploy or just do their regular Guard and Reserve schedule, or even who have had bosses flat out try and deny the leave that they need for military service. That's part of what brought me to the Weather Channel in the first place. I'd been working at a job I took in part because the news director was very supportive of my military service, very excited when I was going to transition into the hurricane hunters. And then there was a management change, like happens at so many media organizations, and it went from day to night. I went from full support to every time I needed to take off time, I was treated with hostility. That created a kind of a culture within the organization. I had a coworker who was openly harassing and hostile anytime I would need to take time off because she didn't want to cover any of my work. And the management even told me once I was not allowed time off on an occasion that I had military orders. So it's very hard, and it can make your life get miserable very fast, especially with all of the other things you're already trying to juggle. And you need to think about that for a second. You know, the fact that there are companies out there that are openly harassing military members. Most managers know it's not okay to discriminate over race or sex. So why should it be any different for someone that's serving their country? It's a protected right as well. And it's not right to do that to someone that serves their country. In that case, I did what so many people do, which is the economy was good, my life was miserable, it was just easier to take a better job and move on. So I had quit, and I was so lucky that the Weather Channel came along, because when everything started, it was really a wonderful fit. It was an honor to be on a national network, but not only that, I was working with all meteorologists. A lot of the managers were meteorologists, so they got what I did for the military. And a lot of them thought it was, quite frankly, really cool. They understood, they respected that work, and they knew why we had to take the time off and the importance that that job brought back to the Weather Channel. Granted, there were still scheduling challenges. There's always going to be those. But at that time, I felt my military service was both valued, and I had no fear that it was ever going to cost me my job. So I was grateful to find that good fit, because I had two jobs that I was really passionate about, and I saw myself with a long future at the Weather Channel. In my free time, I was also doing volunteer work, which I've always done, integrating myself into the community. I had enough free time that I started pursuing the law degree with no intention of practicing, but because I was working with the Children's Advocacy Group. The military wants its officers to have higher degrees. I liked law. I was working with abused and neglected children in the court system. So I pursued that, and the Weather Channel supported all of that, which was really great. In fact, I even won a company-wide award for my volunteer service one year. And then the new owners came, and everything changed again. And all those contributions started becoming overshadowed by the scheduling issues. Speaking to you guys today was never part of our plan. We filed the lawsuit last year. We managed to fly under the radar, and we did that for a couple of reasons. First, I believe that you should give people a chance to do the right thing. So we tried to work with them and, see if they would work with us back over what happened, trying to fix things. Obviously, that didn't happen. Then you also want to have the legal channels have the chance to work their course, and we've been doing that. And then there was the personal risk. It's hard to look for a job and be known as the person that filed a lawsuit. I also have already had the problem of my reputation being damaged for non-renewing, because as we said, in this business, it kind of looks like you were fired. At least that's the perception. Like you did something wrong. In fact, I've had potential employers, all of them have asked what happens, and I have had the direct question, what did you do? So I already had that perception, plus the added concerns that the defendants might try and create some sort of excuse for the termination and further damage my career to take the focus off the military discrimination. And I don't want my reputation damaged any more than it has been. And these are big companies, not just for my civilian career, but I am still serving in the military. You're looking at NBC, who has a lot of ties to military and political connections. The main owner at the time was GE, who has some of the most extensive military contracts you can imagine. And even Bain Capital is tied to a presidential campaign. Those are people, if they wanted to make my life difficult in the military, they could. So it's scary. But as we got more through the process and we faced more of the issues and heard more of the stories of people going through this, I didn't feel it was right for us to be silent about it anymore. There are so many of these USERRA cases out there and so many people that don't have the opportunity to have a voice. It happens more than you think, as I said. And you can look at it this way. I had a military job that directly benefited my employer, taking a couple days off here and there, at most a couple weeks. And I still lost my job. Imagine being the person whose employer doesn't really get their military job, who's going away for months on end, who's working some minimum wage job. If it can happen to me and my schedule and what I was doing, it can literally happen to anyone. And if you are terminated, and more than just harassed, it's an uphill battle. Like so much of America, many military members don't have a large financial cushion. And if your company offers you a little bit of severance to shut up and go away and sign away your legal rights, and you have to feed your family, the odds of maybe getting a lawsuit settlement way down the road, or the little bit of money you can help now, you're going to take it. Proving the discrimination can be a challenge because a lot of it is verbal. I'm very fortunate that I actually have a couple emails. And then if you decide to fight for your rights, the Department of Justice only takes a handful of these cases. So you have to know how to find a lawyer, retain a lawyer, all the costs of litigation. That's really an unsurmountable hurdle for a lot of people. Plus the time and stress of a lawsuit. And all of this you're doing while trying to find a new job. And I can tell you from experience, there are a lot of great employers out there, but there's a lot that are concerned about this issue. I've personally gotten questions like, are you still in the reserves? How much time off would we have to give you? When are you getting out? When you find yourself tempted to downplay your military service, which you shouldn't have to do. I'm very honored to be in the military. Both my grandfathers were in the military. My mother and my stepfather retired out of the Guard. I joined when I was 17 to help pay for college, and I was so young I had to get parental approval to join. But I stayed in because I love my job. I'm a meteorologist who gets to fly into storms, and that's incredible. And even better yet, I absolutely know what we do saves lives and helps prepare people as these horrible forces of nature are about to strike. We get to serve our country, and it's not something I want to have to give up. Guard and Reserve members go through so much, juggling military jobs, civilian jobs, racing sometimes from one job to another. I've done it. I've worked late one job and then done the early morning shift the next day. The risk of being deployed, being away from your family, even if you're just doing weekend duties. 12 weekends a year, that's 3 months a weekend that you're not spending, 3 months worth of weekends a year that you're not spending with your family. It's a lot of time. And it's a huge sacrifice. And if you haven't done it, you just don't know how much it takes. So it's popular right now to say we support the troops and that we've got your back. But if you're going to say it, you should mean it. We need to make sure employers are doing the right thing, if not because it's right, which is why they should do it, at the very least because it's the law. And not liking the law or not knowing the law is not an excuse to break it. We also need to strengthen the laws we talked about to protect our military members so that when they're mistreated or discriminated against, we actually do have their backs. Once again, thank you so much for your time and coming out today.
You were advising the Weather Channel. What would you advise them to do?
Oh, I would advise them to settle this case. We had never hoped to see this day where we had to publicize their outrageous conduct and their hypocrisy in promoting an upcoming special on the hurricane hunters while they drive somebody out of the company who works in that program in a way that benefits them that's been explained here today. It is simply mind-boggling. And the sooner that they step up and do the right thing, all we're saying to the Weather Channel is do the right thing. Do the right thing by somebody who serves their country. Do the right thing by obeying what the law says. And we have substantial documentation that they misbehaved under the law, behaved illegally, if you will. They need to step up and settle this case. And then they need to change their behavior going forward. And it'd be great if they would step up and support service members generally and encourage companies to comply with the law. But right now we're just looking for justice in Captain Mitchell's case.